Okay, we are about to start the live stream. Bear with me one moment. And then once we are on, I will hit the record button. Okay, we are streaming right now and I'm hitting record.
Great, thank you so much. I want to formally welcome you all to the MAPC Executive Committee meeting for Wednesday, September 18th, 2024. This Executive Committee meeting is being conducted remotely via Zoom video conference, consistent with Chapter 2 of the Acts of 2023. This includes an extension until March 31st, 2025. The remote meeting provisions of former Governor Baker's executive order of March 12th, 2020, which suspends the requirement of the open meeting law to have all meetings in a publicly accessible physical location to provide public access to the meeting while limiting the potential for abuse of video conference technology. Members of the public may view this meeting at youtube.com youtube.com/user/MAPC Metro Boston. And with that, I'm going to call this meeting to order at 11:35 a.m. And first up, we'll take the roll. So if everyone could come off mute for a minute, just so we can capture who is here and who is not here. I appreciate it. So here we go. Imai. Not yet. Okay. Colette. Kurt.
Here.
Keith.
Present.
Karen. Jen.
I'm here. Sorry. Here.
Okay. Karen's here. I said Jen. Tom Daniel.
Yes, I'm here.
Okay. John DePriest. John Featherston.
Yes.
Tom G. Mo Handel.
Here.
Great. Sagoon. Tabor.
Here.
Robert King. I see you, Robert. Okay. Angie. Oh. Gina. Steve Olenoff.
Here.
Vandana. Claire.
Here.
Sam.
Here.
Steve Silvera. Juan.
Present.
Elaine. And Erin here. Elaine is here. I didn't hear you, Elaine, but I can see you on the screen. Okay, great. So next up in the agenda is the approval of minutes from July 17th, 2024 and August 21st, 2024. I believe they were sent to you ahead of time. If so, I'm going to ask for a motion to put them on the consent agenda. Please.
So move.
I had motion made by Mo. Who gave me that second? Was it Claire?
It was.
Okay, good. Perfect. Thank you. So motion made by Claire, motion made by Mo, second made by Claire to put that on the consent agenda. Thank you so much. All right, next up is the treasurer's report. Treasurer Sam, take it away.
Hi, everybody. Thank you, President Aaron. Sam Seidel, Treasurer. Today, we're looking at the June 2024 income statement, which I believe you've all received. We'll just go through it quickly. The news is all good. We're going to look first at the June column, the current month column, and you'll see that we ran a deficit of $80,000. That's on my sheet, a number in red down at the bottom. That is because we had less direct labor than we were budgeting for, but plenty of administrative expenses. And that, in some ways, the less direct labor was, it's the month of June, people took time off. There was fewer billable hours in that we could bill against. And there are plenty of expenses that come at the end of the year. So that was completely expected. It left us with an actual overhead rate of 0.8% for the month, which is very high. But in the course of what we were doing over the course of the year, that's actually what we wanted at the end of the month, was a high overhead rate because if you remember in earlier months, we were running slightly below and we were expecting these bills to come in at the end of the year, which would drive up our overhead rate to our approved overhead rate of 123%. So that actually, in a sort of paradoxical way, was good news to have such a high overhead rate. If you go to the right-hand columns, we're looking at the fiscal year to date. And it turns out that June is the end of the fiscal year. So we're looking at the numbers that really wrap up the fiscal year. And the numbers that I would just pull out just for your note are interest income. Oftentimes we get money in for projects, we store it, and interest rates are high, so it generates a certain amount of income. We ended up with an overhead rate for the year of 123.9%. Our approved rate is 123%, so we're slightly above the approved rate, but that's okay, because with the interest income that we have on hand to spend, we can cover that 0.9%, which is on us. It's part of what we have to bear. But other than that, we're looking very good for the year. Our direct labor was at 93% of what we had budgeted for the year, and our administrative expenses were at 94%. So we were slightly below the 100%, but we were pretty much in balance for direct labor and administrative expenses, which is what we like. These are unaudited numbers. The next process in the financial stuff is that these will go into audit starting in October. And we have an approved rate for this upcoming year of 124%. So actually our numbers are getting even more exact, more precise, more on target. That concludes the treasurer's report. I will hand it back to President Aaron.
Great. Thank you so much, Sam. Are there any questions or comments for Sam on the treasurer report?
Sam, could you, or maybe Mark, could you comment on the budget being approximately 80 to 90%? We've accomplished about 80 to 90% of what we budgeted for. So I assume that a lot of that is projects that have been pushed into next year. Do you guys have any, can you report on those projects that were pushed off?
I'm not sure that I can enumerate exactly which ones they were because we're now dealing with hundreds of projects. Often the Homeland Security work gets pushed off to some extent. Very frequently, our DPH contracts get pushed off. Honestly, it's often because our expenditures of DPH dollars depends upon DPH actually coming up with program guidelines and regulations. They often do that a little more slowly than I think either we or they would like. And so the DPH dollars need to be put off into next year. And then, of course, there are, literally hundreds of land use projects, many of them funded by DLTA, which continue to December because the DLTA year, Elaine's year, if I will, runs from January 1st to December 31st, very logically, compared to the fiscal year, which runs from July 1st to June 30th. So some of those monies get put off as well.
And Mark, if I may, just on the Homeland Security, because those dollars also occasionally run on a calendar year and occasionally run on a federal fiscal year, we often are in the position of essentially pushing those into a different fiscal year for ourselves. We also this past year were the recipient of several state grants that was dollars that were actually coming from federal grants that came into the state, where once again, the state wasn't quite ready to start the work. So we were the recipients of the grant. When we originally applied, we thought the work was going to be completed in this 6-month time frame. And then we would hear from some state agency, actually, no, we need you to complete it in this 6-month time frame. So that happened in a handful of instances last year as well. I feel like that might have made some of those numbers a little more elevated from last fiscal year.
Thank you.
Great. Any other questions? Not seeing any. So with that, I'd like to entertain a motion at this time to put this on the consent agenda.
So moved.
Motion made by Tabor. Can I have a second?
I'll second it. It's Tom.
All right. Tom Daniel, you won on that one. So motion made by Tabor to put it on the consent agenda, and then Tom Daniel second. Great. All right. Next
Aaron,
up.
could I Is it
Yeah.
possible for me to just make a couple of quick observations?
Sure.
Thank you. First of all, I do want to thank Anna and the entire finance team, as well as Sam and the finance committee. This was another successful year from a financial perspective. I think it was also a successful year from a substantive perspective, but you don't actually get one without the other. And we were able to, bring in a lot of additional revenue, a lot of new projects. We have a rate of success at federal grants that is honestly enviable. We got another one just the other day, and a lot of state grants as well, which we are using to good effect. The interest income has been high, and that has generated in this short period of time, in the last couple of years, a surplus that exceeds the surplus we get in most years. I suspect that the Federal Reserve, if they haven't already, is going to start to wind that back this afternoon. But we have used the additional interest income to good effect. A lot of that has been put into, for example, a category we call special assessment, which enables us, which includes a certain amount of funding from carryover funds, that enables us to allow the staff to do things, to do projects, to research new ideas, to try and develop new efforts with our cities and towns and subregions that they would not normally have time to do because there's no actually individual funded project yet. And I hope that all of that is going to really pay dividends in services to our members in future years.
Great. Thank you, Mark. Okay. Now up is Deputy Executive Director Lizzie to give the executive report. Lizzie?
Thanks, Erin. I appreciate it. All of you should have received the executive report, and I just wanted to highlight a few items for you. It's always a busy time at MAPC, so I just want to call out a few projects that I'm particularly excited about. The first thing I wanted to draw your attention to is the Electrify Everett project. This is work that we're doing together with the city and some community-based organizations, particularly leading that partnership is the City of Everett and La Comunidad. And we are doing this project mostly because residents in the City of Everett participate in the Mass Save program at a much lower rate than other neighboring municipalities. And so we are doing a really big community engagement project. So this is a collaboration between our clean energy team and our community engagement team to work with the city to try to expand that and make sure that more residents are involved in the Mass Save program. We've also been working with the city to apply for additional funds, which would, if we can unlock those, it'll end up expanding the program. And I also just wanted to highlight this because we had an opportunity together with our sister RPAs from MARPA to present on this particular project to Chief Hoffer, and she was just excited to hear about it and learn about it. I also wanted to highlight actually the next projects that's inside our clean energy team. One of the grants that we just received was a Mass CEC grant to do clean energy workforce planning. I'm very excited about this. We're working with a number of utilities, and it's really looking to try to create a training curriculum for municipal energy and sustainability directors and managers. Very excited about the opportunity to do this work, and it dovetails with some of the other work that we're doing under our Good Jobs Challenge grant, which was one of the major federal grants that we received last year. Jumping down actually to our environment team, we have kicked off the work that we are doing around flood mapping. And that work is actually a complement to some of the existing work that we're doing, providing technical assistance right now to Cohasset, Norwood, and Topsfield on bylaws and regulations that are focused on resilience and flooding. So we're doing just a lot of work in this space. A lot of this is building on some of the research work that we released last year. And it's, it's a really important body of work to make sure that we're kind of adequately representing what flooding is actually happening in our region so that we can kind of meet that with important resiliency measures. I wanted to highlight, we're doing a lot of 3A technical assistance. So right now we're doing work in Millis and Ipswich and Hull on 3A work. And I just wanted to highlight that all of that work is happening. I think, there's a lot in the news about 3A. And I just want to highlight that we're doing a lot of good technical assistance work with our cities and towns that are trying to meet the next deadline at the end of December. Going down to our public health team, I wanted to highlight a really cool project. Our public health team came actually to the executive committee, I think almost a year ago now, to talk about the work that we're doing in Metro West. It's really a community engagement focused project that's really trying to expand understanding of climate issues and emergency preparedness around climate issues for communities in Metro West. And so we did this really cool older adult climate core. There's actually like a very cheery photo inside the executive report, which I encourage you to take a look at. Where we brought together some older adults to actually help us create outreach materials and then lead interviews and share information with other older adults in their community. So it's kind of a community-led outreach and engagement effort. It's ongoing, and it will essentially, the work that we did with this particular climate core will form the basis for work that we're doing in the fall and winter. We also, just again, to share with all of you, we shared this information with the Bar Foundation, who is a major supporter of our climate work. Again, kind of explaining to them that our climate work is very closely connected to our public health work. And it's actually a program that they are hoping to replicate in other areas across the state. I wanted to draw everyone's attention to the fact that in our strategic initiative section, we talked about the number of lunch and learns that we've had this year across the agency. Mark and I made it a priority inside the FY24 budget to make sure that staff had dollars and capacity and time to actually provide some of that shared education to their colleagues. And we had a series of about 10 lunch and learns across a wide variety of topics. We brought in speakers from all over, and they were really well attended at staff. And so by staff at MAPC. And again, I just wanted to draw that connection between the places where we made room in our budget and sort of the way people were able to take advantage of that and share learnings across the agency. A highly technical thing that I wanted to share from our transportation team. This is like going back to my roots as a transportation nerd. MEPA has announced that they are going to be putting out new regulations. So MAPC has a role in the MEPA process. And so a pretty great interdepartmental team of transportation, clean energy, and government affairs worked on a letter to offer our perspective about, to EEA, to offer our perspective about what we feel like those new regs should include. And we were particularly focused on GHG emissions, climate resilience, and VMT, vehicle miles traveled, as a new metric for sustainability. And like I said, it's sort of like that true to our roots, nerdiest of the nerdiest, but very excited about the chance to be able to weigh in this early stage before those regs are out. And I'm glad to share a comment letter if any of you are as excited about it as I am. And then the last thing I wanted to draw everyone's attention, we have a new staff member, Emma Kuntz, started as our council engagement specialist. Their first day was actually yesterday, I think, or maybe earlier this week. And they have joined today. Emma, if you want to give a wave to everyone. I wanted to let folks on this call know that Emma has joined as our council relations specialist because you will be getting emails from them. So I wanted you to not be surprised when you see their name pop up in your inbox. And I think that's everything.
Great. Thank you, Lizzie. Welcome, Emma. Happy to have you. Are there any questions or comments for Lizzie? Great. All right. Next up on the agenda is a report of the legislative committee. The real question is, have you guys caught up on sleep yet? Probably not. maybe Keith, because he's retired, but so I will send it over to Legislative Committee Chair Keith.
Thanks, thanks, President Aaron. Speaking for myself, I've caught up on sleep. Meetings held after 8 p.m. pose a challenge, but 10 o'clock in the morning is just fine. And in fact, the LegCom had a meeting at MAPC offices last Wednesday morning. A few of us were able to attend in person, the rest were on the Zoom, but we had a chance to do a debrief of sorts on what did pass in the legislature, what didn't, what and began to have a discussion about what priorities our organization would want to look at for not only the fall session, which formal session, which perhaps will happen, as well as for the new session that will begin in 2025. So thanks again to the Government Affairs team for all the work that is done on our behalf. I'm looking for who from staff is on the call.
I don't think staff is on, but I'm not sure there's that much to report this time because the legislature is not in session.
That's right. That's if only nothing was happening when the legislature is not in session, would be all set. So
I think the only thing to share, which I'm glad to, is that, we are very hopeful that the legislature will take some unusual steps in their informal session and actually pass some legislation. We have seen some of that actually move across the finish line. There was some firefighter protection legislation, the maternal health bill. Both of those were signed recently. And then I just got a news update that it looks like the federal funds bill has reached an accord. That's a really important piece of legislation for us and actually for all of our cities and towns. I thought if it actually, hopefully reaching an accord means they will actually pass it. But for us, that would actually mean it would put several $1 million in the federal funds office, which they have indicated they would use to help with matches for federal grant applications. So we are particularly interested in following that legislation and pushing it to try to get it across the finish line, because it would potentially unlock many more federal dollars for our cities and towns. Massachusetts has a strong disadvantage relative to other places that have a county government system where they can offer match funds when they do a federal application. We obviously don't have that here. So the federal funds office
Hang on.
create that opportunity for us in Massachusetts. I almost hung on, but I think I'm good.
We're hopeful that in addition to passing some bills in informal sessions, that maybe the legislature will come back for a short formal session at some time in the next few months, because they cannot pass the economic development bond bill, among other things, without a roll call vote. That requires a formal session. So that's another thing we're looking at.
Yeah, I think the other place where we might see them take some action is around the energy siting and permitting bill. The governor, there's a lot of differences of opinion about what should actually be in that final piece of legislation. The governor did file kind of her streamlined version of the energy and siting and permitting bill as an attachment to the final closeout supplemental budget from FY24, which is a typically very late supplemental budget for us. It's supposed to be finished by October 31st of the new fiscal year, but it's gone very, very late until like December, sometimes January. But that's another place where if they take action on the SUP, they would need to actually have a roll call. And if they would need to have an action on the roll, they would have a roll call and then potentially take up the siting bill at the same time. Another place where we really want to see them get it done this session.
And I will say, because Lizzie is too modest to say, if I may, Keith, I will say, because Lizzie is too modest to say, that as a member of the Siting Commission, she had a substantial role in the content of that bill as well.
Just the muni stuff, but I really want to see it get across the finish line.
Yeah, and I was going to say, and if nothing else, the legislature did get around to passing to approving hundreds, authority for hundreds of additional pouring licenses. So perhaps we'll be having some in-person meetings in Boston again. Thanks.
Not on Mark's watch, but he's maybe when he's out of town.
Right.
Tom,
I passed it over my stiff opposition, Keith.
There you go.
And I do mean
Yeah.
stiff.
Sorry, Mark, and thanks for the update, Lizzie and all. Do you have any guess? And I know this is like everybody's wondering this, but on the economic development bill, does it seem like it might come up mid-October, early November? Any sense of timing at all?
If I had to hazard a guess, and I think Mark can speak to this from personal experience, if it's going to come up for a roll call vote, it would be after the election, and in between that and the end of the calendar year. So I would assume, probably knowing the way the legislature works, it might not be until early December.
Okay, thanks.
But we're going to keep pushing. I should also note that we are in the middle of planning our MARPA conference, the regional planning conference that we do every year with the LS. You should come, it's so great. But we are also going to be talking a little bit about, it's on October 8th, and I can drop the registration in a sec, but we are also going to be talking about some of those provisions of the Municipal Empowerment Act, which didn't make it across the finish line this year, but which the Healy Driscoll administration is still very much committed to. And we expect that the Lieutenant Governor will be, in her remarks, she'll be speaking along with a panel of secretariats. And we expect she'll talk about that in her comments as well.
Great. Thank you so much all for that. Oh, all right. Sorry, a lot of windows open on my screen here. All right, great. So with that, I'm going to ask if there's any other business not known at the time of this posting. Okay, good, perfect. So at this time, we're gonna do a vote for the consent agenda. And then I'm going to entertain a motion. You know what, how about if I do this? I'm going to ask for a single motion to do three things. One, to approve the consent agenda. Oh, John, do you have John DePriest? Oh no, I can't hear you. You're unmuted, but. Oh, I'll try it now, John.
How about now?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay. The August 21st minutes do not have me down as present, but I was present.
Great.
Okay.
So with that change or that addition, yes, Steve Olenoff?
Yeah, sorry, I'm trying to catch up here on everything. The last meeting, I mentioned that the executive session, the minutes didn't seem to be complete on that, and I noticed it's been changed, but it doesn't mention the reason we went into executive session. And usually that's generally done in a vague way as far as, land acquisition or employee relationships or things like that. Should that be added?
Why don't we do this? We have a standard phrase we use that is taken from the law. If you would approve it, we could approve it with that amendments, and we could add that additional language, which I would
What
also
is that?
ask you to do.
What is that wording?
I'm sorry?
What is the wording that you would be adding?
It's one of the 9 boilerplate motions that we're allowed to have.
Right.
To formally go into.
We usually
Margie?
say for purposes of collective bargaining or litigation.
Right, so can we add those?
As I said, we will.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Great. Thank you, Steve. Okay. So I'm going to entertain a motion at this time to approve the consent agenda with the additions and changes to the minutes. We are also, within this motion, also enter into executive session for the purpose of collective bargaining or in anticipation of litigation. And 3, to adjourn at the conclusion of the executive session.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Motion made by John DePriest, second made by Mo Handel. Roll call is required. Are there any questions to what we're doing at this time? We have done a few executive sessions on Zoom. So once the vote carries, And the motion passes. Just hold tight for a minute because we have some operational things to do before I call the executive session. I'm just kind of letting everyone know. I have participated in a lot of these over the last couple of weeks, for better or for worse. So here we go. All right. Imai. Colette. Kurt.
Aye.
Keith.
Aye.
Karen.
Aye.
Jen.
Aye.
Tom Daniel.
Aye.
John DePriest.
Aye.
John F.
Aye.
Tom G. Mo.
Aye.
Sagoon. Tabor.
Aye.
Robert. I know you're here, Robert. Just you can wave. Angie. Gina. Steve Olenoff.
Aye.
Vandana.
Abstain since I didn't attend the meetings.
Okay. Claire.
Yes.
Sam.
Aye.
Steve Silvera. Juan.
Aye.
Elaine. Okay. Yeah, I see you nodding. Okay, great. And Erin. Aye. So with that, the motion carries, and the motion carries, and it is approved at 12:04 p.m.
All right.
Just hold tight, everyone.
Thank you,
So,
Erin.
yes.
At this